was awesome as frig. Good morning YouTube, I'm Chucky2009, and one of my more recent videos I mentioned that I've been doing a little bit of mobile welding work, and a whole bunch of people have asked to see sort of a walk around, sort of a tour through my welding rig, so I figured might as well, right? So yeah, we have a little extra time this morning, so I figured might as well put this video together for y'all, and this is it in all of its glory. This is a 2004 Ford Super Duty. This is the 4x4 F250. Really love this truck. It actually used to be a game warden's truck here in the state of Texas. In fact, over on the sides of the doors, if the light hits it just right, you can see where the stickers used to be. It says there's like the state seal of Texas and then state game warden underneath it. It's hard to see, but if you go looking for it, you can totally find it. So there's this truck, has almost 200,000 miles on it, 5.4 liter engine, and it's been awesome. You know, when I bought this thing, I heard from all sorts of ignorant keyboard commandos that are like, oh, this thing shoots spark plugs out every 1,000 miles. Ah, my boat anchor engine hurt. And I've learned in the past when it comes to vehicle decisions, if you hear from a bunch of dumbass keyboard commandos and they tell you not to do something, it's kind of like if you watch TV and the talking heads tell you you don't need something or something's bad, that means you probably do need it and it's probably good. So kind of the same logic there, but I bought this truck 2.5 years ago. Absolutely love it. So the story behind that, when I decided I was going to put together a mobile welding rig and try to branch out into this line of work, I priced out buying a new one of these trucks, and a comparable one to this, a new production, would cost somewhere in the like $45,000 to $50,000 range. Bought this thing for less than $5 grand, and I told myself, you know, how long do you expect you know, a service truck like this to last? Maybe 10 years? So since I'm buying this for 1/10 as much as new, if it lasts for 1 year and I give the thing away, I will have got my dollar's worth out of it. So here we are, 2.5 years later. All I did to it when I got it is I put probably about $2,000 worth of backlog maintenance into it. I had the front end rebuilt, I changed all the fluids, little odds and ends, but nothing major. And since then, it's only needed one single $400 repair in all these miles and a long distance move and everything I've done with it. So really like this truck. And yeah, I built it a front bumper about a year ago. Really like this thing as well. It's really solid. You know, we got the tow hooks up front. We got this winch. This is a 17,500 pound winch. Haven't gotten to use this thing too much, but you know, much like with the 4x4 system on the truck, you don't have to use it that often, but when you need it, you really need it. So I'm glad that that's up here. The other thing, the 4x4, that even works on this truck. You know, it's got the electronic transfer case and you have to get out and lock these hubs in. Really reliable. It's never failed to engage or disengage. And like I said, I don't use it that often, but when I do, it works really well. Mileage wise, the best I ever got mileage wise with this truck was one time on the highway. It was an all highway trip. Everything went really well. I got 18 miles a gallon with it. Normally, not so lucky. Normally it gets like 10, 12 in traffic, but you know what? It's a large vehicle. It's got a lot of weight on it. How much can you ask for? But per internet protocol, I should tell you guys it always gets 18 miles a gallon now. Anyway, moving back, we've got this flatbed here. I know a lot of you guys saw this video series when I made this flatbed. I absolutely love this thing. It's definitely one of the best upgrades I've ever done to a vehicle, and it's really practical. It lets me add a lot more mass to the back of this truck. It's really easy to load and unload. It's a lot harder to damage than a traditional pickup bed. So I got this little side toolbox here full of straps and like some blocks of wood and stuff. And on the back of this flatbed, you can see this welding skid. So the way this works is, you can see it's basically a mobile welding rig in a box, other than all the stuff I have in the cab, which I'll show you all here momentarily. So the advantage of this is there's two of them. First off, it makes it really easy to load material onto the truck as well. So if I have to take some steel with me somewhere, I can slide it in underneath this black frame. I can fit a full 4-foot wide sheet of material in between these legs with relative ease. And so I can take all my tools and material on this thing, and it's really convenient. The other thing that I really like about this system is, as you can see, it's just secured in place by one large heavy-duty strap here. So when I go to load and unload this skid, all I do is I take the forks on my tractor and I just scoop under this thing and pick it up and set it aside. So that's really helpful for me because I have my irons in a lot of different fires at any given point, so I might not always be doing a lot of mobile welding work. I might be doing stuff in the shop, I might be doing tractor work for people, who knows. And so if I need this thing to serve as a shop truck or a flatbed truck or whatever, all I have to do is undo the strap and pick this up and take it off. Including getting the tractor out and starting it and everything, it takes like 15-20 minutes to load and unload this, and it goes from flatbed truck to welding truck in that amount of time. So I really like the welding skid design. So we got that. Yeah, now this is the welder I use. This is a Miller Trailblazer 325 EFI. Really like this thing. I've had it for about probably about a year and a half ago. I got it, and I made a video about this that's on my channel if you guys want to search back. It's been a really good machine for me. I haven't had any issues with it. It can be a little cranky to get it going sometimes in the morning when it's completely cold, but you know what, when it's warm, you just barely bump the starter button and it fires right up. And since it's an EFI machine, there's no carburetor, which is great because I despise carburetors. And so this saves me a lot of problems, it saves me a lot of headaches, and it is incredibly fuel efficient. I ran this thing for like 5¼ hours. I was on site yesterday. It's something smaller I had to go take care of, and it used 3 gallons of gas and it was running the whole time. So how awesome is that? And I was burning 5/32 70/18 at like 150 amps. So it's really efficient, really reliable, and yeah, I'll fire it up. There we go. So it's never failed to start, but it can be a little temperamental first thing. It's honestly not that bad, and the more I use it, the better it gets. The other thing I like about this machine is it'll weld at, I don't remember the exact amperage off my head, I think it's like 120 amps or something, at just above idle. So it's really nice because you know, it's a gas engine, of course, so we're not winding this thing out at full RPMs all day. It's also a lot quieter, and again, it saves fuel. So really like this machine, highly recommend it. And then I've got this blue toolbox up here. So story behind this toolbox, I bought this from my then local Lowe's back in Austin when I lived there. And when I went to buy this thing one day, this was the only one they had in the store, and the whole back side of it had this huge dent in it. It was all smashed in. And so I negotiated with the store manager for like 20% off the box or something. I don't really care about this because it's going on a welding rig, and the way I had it designed at the time, you wouldn't even be able to see the back side of the box. So I saved like, you know, 40 bucks or something. It was about a $200 box, I think. And I took that and went to the grocery store next door and bought with it, and then the next morning I hammered out the dent, and now you can barely even see where it is unless you really go looking for it. So let's take a look at some of the contents of this. Alright, so this is the inside of the toolbox. We got it open up. I had to put this fireproof blanket over the panel here, the top panel, because in a video like, I don't know, a year ago or so, before I had my current contact information on this thing, I put it on here in case the box ever got stolen. This was before it was attached to the entire welding skid, of course. And a bunch of people who saw that, even though I didn't really realize it was in there until after the video was up, decided they wanted to be Richards and they had nothing better to do with their life than to prank call whatever unfortunate person in Austin, ended up with my old phone number. So because of that, now we have to keep it covered up. Anyway, this is the inside of the box. This holds most everything I use on a regular basis. Pretty much everything in the cab, which I'll show you momentarily, is not that commonly used. Obligatory cloth welding jacket. This is from our channel sponsor BSX. I really like these things, wear them all the time, hold up really well. So we have that. Hypertherm face shield, this is also from them, and the really cool thing about this is it's a shade 8 face shield, so you know, you can flip it up and then be grinding and see everything you're doing, then flip it down and plasma cut some stuff if necessary. And you know, it's like 2 face shields in one, and this thing's been banging around in here for over a year now, and it's held up flawlessly. So we have that. Moving on, extension cord. This is one I actually bought at Home Depot. They say it's made in USA, which I thought was kind of interesting. 12 gauge cord, like 25 feet. A little stiff because it's like 30 degrees out here right now or so. And yeah, so that's my go-to extension cord now because they're domestically produced, which is always nice when it's feasible. Well, angle grinder. I've had this thing since like 2012 or so, and overall I like it. Now these things, they have a lot more vibration and they make a lot more noise, and they don't run nearly as smoothly as either my Milwaukee or my Makita grinder, But they do hold up really well. They do have a fair amount of power to them, and I don't know why they're rattly and grrr as you're running them, but they seem to just keep going and going and going. And so a couple years ago when I put this welding rig together, I looked through all my angle grinders. I decided on which one I would miss least if it got damaged or stolen, and it was this one. Sorry, DeWalt fanboys. And it has held up flawlessly, and I really like it. So, I mean, other than the grrr as you're running it, but I think they all do that because when I was in high school, we had like 10 of these in the classroom, and they were all like that, and they all lasted for years and years and years and never had problems. So it's really weird, but this one served me really well. Yeah, so we got that. Welding leads, I don't remember the exact designations of this stuff. I think this is like 1/0 or 0.1 or something. We've got these Tweco quick connects. This is an absolutely horrible system. I hate it. Someday I'll switch over to proper DINS plugs like the rest of humanity uses, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. However, the leads themselves have been great. Made a video about putting these together in the like fall of 2015 or something. I got the longer lead extensions, which I'll show you here momentarily. So this is a 25-foot lead. This is my primary stinger lead. We got a Jackson electrode thingamajigger on there. And then there's 2, I believe these reach 50-foot extensions. This is the standard ground lead. So I have this one, and then there's this one, which is really the extension. This one's just the ground. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. And then there's this one here. So you know what? If I use all of these things, I can have 75 feet of reach from the welder for the electrode, and 50 feet for the ground clamp, which usually works out really well because, as you all know, you only have to ground one spot on a project, and you use the remaining 25 feet to work around it, or walk around to the back side of it and weld back there, whatever you have to do. So moving on, we got a socket set. This is a 1/2-inch drive. This is a SunX Tools thing. I don't think I've ever actually used this on the welding rig, but I decided that I needed a proper socket set on here. I've used this a couple times in my shop, like when I was moving and my regular sockets were all boxed up. No issues with it, but like I said, haven't really used that too much. Moving on here, duct tape fixes everything, including holes that you burn in clothes. That's a story for later. That actually goes up in the cab. I got this super cheap, super flimsy Lincoln Electric electrode holder. These things are a complete joke, but the electrodes they make are quite nice. I have to replenish this actually. I've been meaning to do that. 1/8-inch Excalibur 7018s in there. There's like 2 pounds of them, so I'm just gonna set them up here for now. Let's see, moving on, we got some of these Hobart, 5 pounds of their 6011. The Hobart electrodes, not really the greatest I've ever used, but they're quite decent. And you can buy these things anywhere. And the advantage of buying these little small black plastic 5-pound deals is the containers they come in are really high quality. They're really damage resistant, so I don't worry about them rolling around in here and getting stuff dropped on them and cracking, and then my electrodes getting damaged. The other thing is, these things sell at like any Tractor Supply or Farm and Fleet store for 15 to 20 bucks per thing, depending on the electrode type. So what's really nice about this is if I go somewhere, I can just be like, you know what, we use this 5-pound box or whatever. It cost me 16 bucks. I mark it up to 21, and that's what this is on your invoice. So it definitely has some advantages over having 50-pound containers back at the shop that I have to keep replenishing stuff from and guesstimating weight on and everything. So that works out pretty well. Yeah, so then we got some 5/32 7018. This is actually Lincoln Electric rod in here, but I really do like these boxes. And honestly, like I said, aside from Hobart's 6010, their electrodes really aren't that bad. So we got that. We got a drill. This is my DW130V. I actually have 2 of these. I really like these drills. They're lower RPM drills than a regular electric drill, so they're great for working with metal. I keep one in the shop and obviously one on the truck. And this thing was in like every video, or rather the other one, the one that lives in the shop, was in like every video before I got my my mill and my drill press. So yeah, don't use that very often, but it's nice to have when necessary. Big thing of shop rags. Got some random stuff in here. S-swing chipping hammer, wire brush. Let's see, try to do as much as possible. 8-pound sledgehammer. Don't have to use this very often, but when you need it, you need it. Pretty much the same story with this pry bar. This is the S-Wing Big Blue, little cringy name there, but made in USA, very high quality pry bar. I love this thing. Again, don't use this every day, thankfully, but when you have to put a lot of leverage on something, it's really good to have something like this on your truck. Alright, moving on. Sealed jug of acetone, self-explanatory. Now as you guys can see, this was sideways in there because these things never really stay in place. So I usually keep a gallon or two of acetone here in my shop because we use this stuff like every day, degreasing metal and cleaning stuff up. And every time after I open one of these and use it on a job, I swap out the open one with a sealed one from the shop. So there's pretty much always a sealed one in here because I don't want this to spill and get all over everything. That'd be really bad. So we got that, and yeah, moving on. We got the exhaust flapper, which fell off my friggin' engine drive yesterday. I bought this aftermarket. This is just a little Tractor Supply special, and stuck it on there, and thing fell off, so we have to weld that back on momentarily. Like Grandpa said, YouTube, if you want something done right, sometimes you have to do it yourself. Alright, moving on. A pair of stick welding gloves. These are the Black Stallion 850Ms. I really like these things, some of my favorites. Yeah, just some go-to gloves I keep in here. Cable ties, you guys can see I keep my my stick leads and extension cords and everything usually zip tied together. Just makes it really neat and tidy to keep stuff in here. Obviously you don't want a big tangled mess of crap in here. That's not going to be good for anybody. And so I buy these things one giant bag at a time, and the giant bag lasts me for quite a while, and this is a lot of organization for like $9 or whatever these cost. So probably a more efficient way to do that than having to cut zip ties off of stuff every time you go to use it. But I haven't found it yet, and I really like those things. So moving on, we got this toolbox, which as you can see contains primarily wrenches and pliers. This is an old Kennedy box. I love these things. I buy them from yard sales and stuff when I see them. Really high quality toolbox. In here, store-bought C-clamp, ball peen hammer, some standard pliers, 3/8 drive, socket set. You know, just like some channel locks and an extra pair of safety glasses and random odds and ends and hand tools. So we got that. Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff in here, and I don't do mobile welding every day, but when I do, I usually really enjoy it, and I'm glad it's something that's in my repertoire, especially because it's so easy to go from this truck being a welding truck to a shop truck and back thanks to this skid. So this whole skid was actually a viewer suggestion, so I'd just like to thank whoever suggested that a year or two ago, and I'm really glad I did it, and thank you guys for all the positivity and support out there that I get in these videos. So moving on, we got almost empty 3/32 7018. That's left over from something. I gotta like combine a couple boxes. And now we have this. Yeah, so this is my my Hypertherm Air 30. They're another member of our channel sponsors. I've had this machine for almost exactly a year, and this is my go-to metal cutting machine on this welding rig, and it works great. Last time I used this, I was cutting some 1/4-inch plate out in the dirt and mud. Worked flawlessly. Surface rust on the material, mud and stuff everywhere. No issues whatsoever. I just plug this into my my generator, my engine drive, and it'll cut as thick as the material was that I cut in that video. So under 1/4 inch and below, like butter. Thicker than that, I don't remember how thick it'll comfortably do because I don't usually have to cut stuff like that. But it's been a great machine, not one single problem. Consumables last just about forever, and yeah, I love it. It's my, as you can see by the fact it's in here, this is my choice of machine for cutting stuff when I'm out on the road. So it's great. Yeah, for anybody who's not familiar with these, the great thing about them is they have a portable built-in air compressor. So you don't need an air compressor or compressed air cylinders or to plug in and run an air compressor anywhere. You just plug this machine in, it generates its own air, cuts everything. It's like a complete one-stop kit here. So yeah, really big fan of this machine. Starting to run out of room over here to set stuff. Yeah. So moving on, what do we have here? See, this is what I mean about these Hobart Electro boxes. This lid's like cocked over sideways and still in. This is some of their 3/32 6010. I have no idea why I even have this. Alright, that's been down there for a while. Yeah, it's probably good to go through stuff like this every once in a while, right? So moving on, we got actually 2 sets of drill bits. Kind of nice to have some multiples of stuff. Milwaukee set and an Irwin set. Irwin set's not bad. Irwin stuff, I find it's really hit or miss. It's all like higher end price wise, and some of it's quite nice. Other stuff is just like rebadged junk pretty much, but this has been a great kit for me. Yeah. Moving on from there, extra pair of mechanics gloves just like the ones I'm wearing now. This is the 110 volt adapter for the Air 30. You can run it on 110 volt power as well. Set that aside. Now we've got this Cobalt 1/2" drive flex head ratchet. I really like this thing. It's a cheaper tool. It's Taiwanese, but it's actually been a really good wrench. I use this all the time in my mechanical adventures before I ended up putting it on my welding truck. And I don't, like I said with the sockets, I don't think, luckily, I've ever needed it. I don't really want to have to use that stuff if I can help it. You know, I'm a welder, not a mechanic. But sometimes it's good to have stuff like this around. And you know what? For what this thing costs and where it's from, it's actually been a really, really high quality tool. So love this thing, had it for several years. Set that aside. Saw set for the electric drill. We got that, and this is a, let me try to say this without twisting my tongue, this is a wrench roll. There we go, that actually wasn't too hard. I fit a full set of imperial and metric wrenches in this thing. Like with the sockets, luckily, don't have to use these pretty much ever, but I'm glad they're here. So we have that. Moving on, we've got layout stuff and clamps in this little Kennedy toolbox. This is actually the toolbox I took through welding school with me, and this thing was probably like 30 years old before I bought it. So in here, we've got a bunch of flap discs, paint markers, tape measures. There's a square under there, and then on the bottom side, we got a speed square, bunch of vice grips, C-clamps, things along those lines. And yeah, it would be kind of cool to have a truck with a service bed on it, so there's all those rows of toolboxes down each side. But for me, it's really best for my situation to have the flatbed and have the added versatility that comes with it. And since I'm in this current situation with the welding skid, which I really like, I don't plan to change anytime, I think it's really great to have everything spread out between multiple toolboxes in here as opposed to having one big toolbox that weighs like 200 pounds. So yeah, we got that. And we're really getting down there, YouTube. This some stuff doesn't see the light of day too often. Oh yeah, also 5.5" K-bar over here, and a level that just kind of lives out of the way on this little shelf. That's been there for thousands upon thousands of miles and crashing through fields and whatnot, and it hasn't moved an inch. So really not a bad little level. And here we have something that I also don't use too often, thankfully. This is my Milwaukee Electric portable bandsaw. I've had this thing since 2013 or so, and it's been a great little tool. Like I said, I don't really use it every day, especially now that I have that Hypertherm Air 30 on board, but never once a single problem with this thing. It's held up really well. As you can see, it's got more than a few hours on it, and for a while this was my primary means of cutting metal while I was still getting my shop set up. So really good tool. Like I said, it's 3.5 years and not a single issue with it, so I can't complain about that too much. I'm actually going to leave this in here because I'm starting to run out of space. Moving on, a few little odds and ends. Another thing is zip ties. I'll consolidate those two later. We have that, plus a little engineer's hammer. This is, I don't think it even says on it how much it weighs, probably like 3-4 pounds, something like that. A handful of specialty electrodes. This is 1/8" Noma cast. This is good for obviously repairing cast iron. Sort of lower intensity repairs, not quite as good as what you'd find with say nickel rods or something. Then I got some thin 7014, some more thin 7014, 16L stainless steel rods. These are great for really hard material, really brittle, hard to weld stuff. Could be used on cast iron as well, joining the similar metals, things along those lines. And what is this one? And we have some nickel rods. So I keep these around. Like I said, don't, obviously by the fact they're all still in here, I don't use them that often. I try not to do cast iron repair work on the road. That's something I really like to do in my shop because I have a lot more control over it. But I've learned it's really best to have a few pounds of the specialty stuff and not have to use it than to one day, you know, hey, can you weld this? Well, you know, you don't have the rods to do it, and now it's gonna completely mess up the entire schedule there. So we have that. We also have some 3/32" 7014. That's used for welding thinner metals. Luckily, I've never had to stick weld thinner materials with this rig. What I have done in the past is just taken a wire feed welder like a MIG machine and plugged it into my engine drive, and that's worked flawlessly, and I like that a whole lot better. Produces better results, a lot cleaner, even though you have to set it up probably a lot faster. But you know what? Like I said, it's better to have it, not need it. So we have that, and then there's the 24" Cobalt pipe wrench here, and This is just good for having to shape material, having to bend stuff, having to put tension and weight on things as necessary. And yeah, so that's about that. And I usually keep this thing locked up with a couple of these ABUS locks. One thing I've learned is it's really best not to cheap out on padlocks. ABUS, they're a German company. These locks are like Taiwanese or something, but excellent quality control on them. They're really quite affordable. I think these are only like 10-12 bucks a lock. And probably close to a year or so ago, I ended up replacing the padlocks on just about everything I own with ABUS locks, and I definitely don't regret that at all. So a lot more secure than a standard master lock or something. So yeah, that's my engine drive, that's my plasma cutter, all this cool stuff that I have in here. And so now I'm just going to set this stuff back in the blue toolbox, and we'll take a look at some of the stuff that's in the cab. So although I keep most of the stuff I use most often in that toolbox, there is a fair amount of stuff in this truck strategically positioned to kill me quickly and painlessly in the unfortunate event of an unexpected rollover. So we got that. We also have these chain running boards I built a couple years ago. Sometimes people ask about these things, and they're holding up just fine. I really like them, and people see them and compliment me on them at like gas stations and stuff constantly, which I think is really cool. So folks really like them. If you thought about making yourself a set of these, highly recommend it. No issues with mine in the last couple years. So on the inside of this, I'm already losing my duct tape. We got obligatory duct tape, of course, and then right on the inside of this door here, come check this out. Spare flap disc and wire wheel. Let's see, we got that. We got some side cutters for cutting the zip ties. Those live up here. Large mag light, hand sanitizer because some places are friggin' disgusting. Clipboard thing for writing out invoices and whatnot, knife for knifing stuff, hitch pin, spare flashlight, half a ratchet strap, stuff like that. And then in the back of this thing we've got all sorts of cool stuff. Now this one's going to be a little hard to show you because the rear door on the other side doesn't open. It didn't open when I bought the truck, and it's always been on my proverbial to-do list to get around to taking it apart and like replacing the little straps in here that lift up on the release, and I've never actually gotten around to it. So in the back of this thing, pintle hitch. Not so much welding rig related, but I keep this in here because most of my trailers are pintle trailers. So and this is the vehicle I usually tow them with, so it's nice to have this around. And then aside from that, we got the newest edition back here. After this, leather welding jacket. Really good to have both. Some people don't. I think you really need both because I don't have to wear that thing every day. Usually I'm just fine and properly protected with the cotton one, but if you find out you have to like crawl up underneath something to weld on it or do something along those lines, it's really nice to have access to the leather one. And then we've got the newest addition to this truck. Got stuff dragging and everything. This is the, I believe this is about a 6-inch vise with the stand that I built for it. This was in a video that just posted like, I don't know, 2-3 days before I edited and filmed this one. So yeah, got this. Haven't gotten to try this one out, of course, since I went to all the trouble and expense to build it. But I really like this vise. I did a review on it and everything. And then there's the hillbilly hacked and cobbled together out of scrap material stand for it. So I'm really glad to have this thing. Having to hammer and pound stuff when you don't really have a place to do it is never fun. I really don't want to twist and damage my flatbed by doing that. So we got that. Spare inner tube from when we were hauling dump truck tires with this thing that actually doesn't go in here. It's kind of good I'm doing this. So let's see, we got this. This is the conversion cord for the Trailblazer. This is the type of outlet that the machine has. This is the type of outlet that every single one of my tools has, so I figured I'd make up this cord. Also doubles as a shorter extension cord. It's like 6'8" or 10 feet long, something like that. So that's kind of nice because, you know, not only do I need the pigtail to get the proper plug, but oftentimes this gives me the reach I need to access stuff that's really close to the truck as well. So 2 birds with 1 stone here. Moving on, we've got a 30-foot 220 volt extension cord. Set this aside, and I can run my plasma cutter off of that. I can run any number of the welders that I have in the shop with that if I have to take one with me for any reason. And then moving on, we got a variety of tow straps and blocks and everything in here for the winch. spare 3/8 drive socket set. This is the one that's in the truck, so I always have one even when I don't have the welding rig. Guess I could technically consolidate and take the one off of there, but I don't really have the time or patience for optimizing everything 100%. So we got a spare one of these. Case of water. I usually try to be as self-sufficient as humanly possible when I go to welding jobs. So that means I don't run my tools off of their electricity. I don't ask them for things like this if I can help it. I try to view myself as a problem solver, and so I just try to be as self-sufficient as possible. And that's one tip I'd give to anybody looking to get into the mobile welding thing. You don't want to be bothering people. You don't want to be needy. You don't want to be like, hey, can I have this? Can I have that? Do you have one of these? Oh, I forgot my this thing. So that's why I try to keep everything I need with me. So moving on, we got the chop saw. This is the dirty old abrasive chop saw. That's actually why it's not in my shop anymore. I have the Carbide chop saw. It's a lot faster, it's cleaner, it cuts cool to the touch, it doesn't launch essentially grinding dust everywhere. But you know what, sometimes it's nice to have something like this. This costs like 1/3 as much as a Carbide chop saw. You can cut through hardened materials with it a lot easier. If you damage a blade, you're out $6 instead of like 130 or so. So these things are really quite nice to take on the road with you. Luckily, I don't have to use this thing almost ever. Normally I try to cut stuff at my shop, or things are already cut and ready to weld by the time I show up. But in the interest of trying to be self-sufficient and prepared for about anything, I keep this with me. That's another thing. Generally, if somebody calls me and they're like, hey, can you come do this? I'm like, yep, my stuff's ready to go, or it's not, and I just need 10, 15, 20 minutes to stick the skid on the back of the truck, and then I'm ready to go. I keep this thing fueled up, both the welder itself and the truck, so I can pretty much just hop in and go about any time, and I don't have to waste an hour of my time rummaging through the shop and pulling tools out like, oh, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna put this in here, and then going through the toolbox, oh, I probably won't need this, and leaving it out. I try to have everything pretty much ready to go, and this saw has actually been a great saw. This is the Makita 241 4NB model. I've had this thing for years. I bought it in like 2013. It was used when I bought it, and and it survived every tool upgrade and purge and replacement ever since then. And it might actually be one of the longest serving power tools that I own right now. Don't use this thing very often. Used it yesterday for the first time in like forever, but it works out really well. And if you're in the market for a abrasive chop saw, highly recommended, because this thing, I bought it used. Like I said, I bought it from a guy. I vividly remember this. I was in high school at the time, and I go to meet with him as a Craigslist deal, and he's like, I bought this saw because I heard the blades were only like $6, and the problem is it throws grinding dust everywhere, so I can't use it in my basement, so I'm selling it. I was like, all right, I'll take it. And there's your useless story of the day. I don't know why I shared that with you guys. All right, moving on. We got the spare tire in here. When I built the flatbed on this truck, I had to remove that from, you know, where it mounts underneath the original bed. And never got around to building a proper mount for it outside, so it's still rolling around with me in here. And then I got a backpack full of random extra welding gear. There's like a spare cotton jacket in there, 3 or 4 spare pairs of gloves, and a welding helmet, which is, oh, I guess I can just fish this out. That actually wasn't difficult at all. Yeah, so we got some spare gloves in here. And lately, I've been using this. This is the light flip. Uptrail sent this out quite some time ago so I can make a video about it. Literally just used it yesterday. Works flawlessly, never once an issue with it. Love this thing. The really cool thing is the auto darkening shade flips out like this, so it doubles as a regular face shield. It's really nice to just be able to flip this up and take care of it. Love this helmet. Like I said, no issues, performs flawlessly. And yeah, so I keep that in here as well. And spare jacket, spare earplugs. I don't even know what's in this. This is kind of, aside from the helmet which lives here because it's got this nice padded cover, I use this backpack kind of like a backup set of everything, so I kind of try not to take stuff out of here. This is, like I said, my spare welding jacket, my spare gloves, my spare earplugs. So it's just a little reserve of stuff that I use pretty often. And then way over there in the corner, you can see we have a fireproof blanket, that yellow thing. And yeah, and that's fiberglass reinforced, essentially. I don't remember the proper term for it. So it's really cool because, you know what, if I'm working on a vehicle, if I'm repairing a truck or something, I can just drape that down over the painted sections, and I don't have to worry about sparks and spatter and slag and everything, you know, tearing up the paint job. Or if I have to weld something over dead grass or whatever, I can put that down and it'll catch most of the sparks. Won't prevent all problems, but it certainly does help. And I think that's pretty much it with this. Not really a whole lot to it. It's definitely not the most high budget welding rig ever. You know, like I said, I bought the truck for about $5 grand, a little under. It's like 4,800 bucks or so. Spent like, I'll round up and say $3 grand for everything. The few repairs it needed, the backlogged maintenance, a couple creature comforts, like I put in a proper stereo, and I love it. It's perfectly reliable. Got the flatbed back there, flatbed and bumper. The cost to build those was obviously extra, but you know what, over 2.5 years, you spend a little money on it here, a little money on it there, and it's really not hard to keep this thing set up and ready to go at the drop of the hat. And even when it's not ready to go, like I said, it only takes me 15 minutes or so to pick up that welding skid and set it back on here, and then it's ready to go. So that's my tour of the welding rig. There's hopefully a couple little tips for folks that might be thinking about getting into mobile welding. And for the type of general fabrication repair type stuff I do, this works great. I've never not been able to complete a job just because I don't have anything or because my machinery is not good enough or whatever. I've always found a way to get stuff done, and I've solved a lot of problems and welded a lot of stuff with this. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's sort of a random little vlog type video. I just kind of want to show you how I have this set up and try not to be too much of a look at my cool toys type braggart. I'm just showing you guys what I use on a daily basis, and thanks for watching. Hope this free to watch video is everything you hope to be. Have a nice day, everybody.